Oh, yes, you are listening to DJ LP live on Passion Radio. How you doing? How's life for you? What's going on? I hope, I trust that all is well where you are, wherever you are, whoever you are, whatever is going on in your life right about now. I am just trusting that all is going well for you, that life is good, and that you are feeling my favorite word, which is Irie. Absolutely Irie. Okay, so I don't know what's going on with the radio. Let's just check that everything's okay. Yeah. Okay, all right. So I do believe that I can be heard over the airwaves of Passion Radio. I'm getting a message to say, where are you? Aren't you playing? Yes, I am. And I'm broadcasting live. So I just want to say thank you so much for joining me. I hope, as I said, that you are well and that life is going good for you. I have another show for you lined up. It's not an interview today. I'm not interviewing anybody today. I'm just talking, my truth, and hoping that it resonates with you as well. Okay, that is the overall plan. Okay, so as I said, I am DJ LP and I am here live on Passion Radio talking about, as always, dying, death, and grief. Today, I'm talking about grief, and I'm talking about music, and I'm talking about the importance of music when it comes to our grief. So as you will know, I started off this show today with Missy Elliott, Missy Misdemeanor, and the song Lose Control. So she was saying music makes me lose control, and I know how she feels. Of course it does. Music is in our bodies, and our bodies are receptors for sound. Our bodies are noisy musical instruments. And, we all have a heartbeat. We all have eardrums. We have vocal cords. We have heartstrings. Yeah. Our organs keep us going. We have hips in our bodies, and our bodies are designed to be able to hop. We breathe in rhythm. And oftentimes that rhythm is akin to the waves coming in and the waves going out. We use our mouths to communicate. We use them to sing. We use them to harmonize. And we are able to reach pitches on both high and low notes. We can beatbox, and we can use our bodies to tap and clap and slap and make all sorts of noises. Our bodies are more amazing than we can even relate to sometimes. If I think that if we knew the magnitude of how great our bodies were, we would just be like, wow. But of course, we don't know how to use our bodies to the fullest extent of their magnificence. Unfortunately, we just use a very small percentage of our bodies. But, our bodies respond to light, and our bodies respond to sound. Sound moves us, it shapes us, and it moves through us, just as light does, and it blends with us. Indeed, one of our sages in our community, Brother Leon Marshall, explains in his book Melanin that we of African descent, we hear music differently. We engage with music and rhythm differently. We absorb music in ways that others will never really be able to fully understand and feel. And the reason why is because we have melanin. And so that melanin allows us to take information in different ways. And we take in a lot of information through music, through sound, through frequencies that we can hear consciously and frequencies that we cannot consciously hear. So once again, that book is Melanin, and it's written by Leon Marshall. Bear with me a second. Oh dear. And it's called The Hidden Science of Melanin. Okay, and that's written by Leon Marshall. The Hidden Science of Melanin by Leon Marshall. So, when I was younger and I used to go clubbing, my favorite spot was always by the speakers so that I could hear the music pass through my body. It was necessary for me to stand by the speakers. I had to, because that vibration, those vibrations, they would leave me feeling so energized and nice, you know. I felt the music as well as hearing it. And my ears, I would come out of the club and my ears would be ringing, but even that felt good because the overall feeling was pleasant to my body. And I remember that, you know, when I was younger, I was often told through religion that music was used by demonic mediums that controlled the frequency and the vibration and the sound. But I didn't care. It didn't matter to me. It wasn't enough to keep me away from people like Little Kim in those days. But when I hear the music that's put out there today, I get it. I truly get it, you know. Musical sequences have a power, and the words that we sing, you know, it all generates. I was warned that words can be so debased that they affect the levels of consciousness, whether we're aware of them or not. But as they say, the rhythm is going to get you. And you know, it would be the beat, it would be the bass. For me it was the bass, but it was the beat, it was the tune, it was the music that would keep you moving. It didn't matter what words were being said. I get it now. I get it now. And I chuckle, and you know, I can't help it, but when I hear Jah, whether it's consciously or not, so many of us will instinctively say Rastafari. Yeah, whether we say it in our minds or verbally, we know what it means, even if we're not Rastas or resonate with that religion or movement in any way. We know that when we hear Jah, what follows is Rastafari. So there are a lot of words that we say in the English language and in life in general that, you know, carry a frequency, that carry a vibration, that affect us on different waves and different forms and in different dimensions, because our bodies are so much greater than we realize. Our minds are deep, and the further we go into our minds, the more we realize the programs and the behaviors that play out as a result of what we hear. When we have a tune with a catchy beat, we can listen to that song over and over and over again. And it's a bit like it's chanting, you know, but we don't realize how much more is hidden underneath that music, much more than we know, you know. But I must say, I'm not here to talk about the evils of music. I love it. I love it. I love it. I love it. And I cannot do without music. What I'm here to talk about today is the healing powers of music. Music is a healer, especially when we have experienced the loss of a loved one. Okay, music is vital. It's so important to us. A few weeks ago, at the Dimensions of Grief Loss Cafe, that is founded and hosted predominantly by Debbie Roberts, and sometimes by myself, we had a conversation about music and the importance of it when we are handling our grief. So many people shared, you know, how music made them feel and how they were able to reconnect with it in different ways. And I can definitely, you know, talking for myself, I can just, you know, relate to that 100%. I remember on that day, I recounted the fact that when my dad died, all the thought of music just slipped away until one day I realized that I was sitting in my car and I was completely silent. And I don't know how long I had been sort of driving around and without music for, but I was completely silent. And I hadn't listened to music in so long that I'd forgotten the need for it. And in that instance, when my memory kind of jogged me, it was like, right, okay, Busy Signal, Vybz Kartel, Tanya Stephens, Lady Saw, Beanie Man, and the rest at that time, they kind of came and they lifted me out of my grief and moved me to a different level. And then I was moved again when I tapped into music that I had grown up to. And it felt like then I was more in tune with my dad. And I listened to the words of those musicians that I like to refer to as prophets and saints of that time, such as Dennis Brown, Culture, Peter Tosh, Bob Marley, and the greats. Not so much a Gregory girl, but, you know, there are some people that I just kind of resonate with. And you will find that there are people in any genre of music that you just resonate with. And to be honest, I'm still in that zone, but it doesn't mean that I can't appreciate music from other places, because all music carries vibration, carries healing, carries melody, you know, and is so important for us. We made classical music. Classical music originates with us. You know, we are the founders of all. And so it makes sense that we would be in tune with this medium that serves us in so many ways. Music and movement goes hand in hand. It's vital healing for our grief. It has the power to take us back in time and to reconnect us with memories that make us feel good. Because we're always searching for a feeling. We're always searching for a good feeling. And so we search our memories for our good feelings. Music then, through our memories, brings the dead back to life, and the life to those images and feelings and emotions that we may have forgotten. It takes us back. As Vybz Kartel says, it's timeless. After the time, it's timeless. Music is beautiful. And so often when we are trying to express ourselves, we can often think back to a song that said it, you know, or a line in a song that just sums up everything that we're thinking and feeling. Music restores the smiles and the comfort, or it provides the environment for our tears. And you know what? Our loved ones deserve our tears. They deserve our tears. We're not to hem them in and hold them in and suppress them, because, you know, we've had their life, the lives of our loved ones, we've had their life. We have lived them. And we have breathed them. And so they deserve our grief, because they will always mean something to us, you know. And last week I had Sister Amashade on, and we were talking about tears and how they are the strongest, most purest form of libation. We need to express ourselves. So let's express our grief. You know, when we move our bodies to music, we heal. When we use our bodies and sing from the heart, we heal. When our voices are lifted in praise, our vibrations are lifted. We have the ability to lift a room through our voice, through our vocal expression. As the great MC Hammer once said, let's go deeper. In our conscious mind, we know that our loved one has departed. Okay, we know that they have gone, but our bodies need to align with that fact as well. Every cell in our body knows the person, remembers them, feels them. You know, we are electrically and magnetically attracted to people. So when they leave us, whether it's by death or by argument or by life choices, when we lose them, we miss them, and our bodies miss them too. Okay, so we are in these bodies. I'm not saying that we are separate to the body, but we are living in these bodies, and our bodies tune in to people, tune into their frequency, to their airwaves, to their smell, you know. So when we have an item of their clothing or something that they cherished and we breathe it in, we are breathing in their essence. And in their essence is their aura, is their memory, is their truth, is their wisdom, is their love and their comfort and our connection. Okay. When we reach out to hug someone, we are joining the energies. We are bonding and aligning with people. And a simple touch or sharing of our time and our company with another isn't actually simple at all. There's so much more happening on spiritual and social and emotional and physical and psychological levels. We are charged up by people, and their moods affect our moods. You know, some people bring us up and other people just, bring us down. That's the truth of, you know, us. And I heard Edison say this weekend that we can actually be allergic to people. There are some people that just get under our skin. They just irritate us. When we see that they're calling, it's like, oh, you know, or when we see them in the street, it's like, oh, you know. I had a lady that I saw recently at an event actually for Windrush. And the moment I saw her, my energy just went flat because I don't like her. I don't like her, and my ancestors don't like her. My spirit doesn't like her. Simple things, straight up. So, you know, when we are in the energy of people, when we're in the environment of other people, we are affected by people. So it's so important that we are kind of energetically clean. We transmit, and whether we know it or not, we are sending communication and waves out to people. Oh dear. So yeah, when we are denied the connection that we have with people, however that denial comes, we feel it. You know, our emotions get trapped and our bodies absorb our traumas and our energies. So when we move ourselves in different ways, especially through music or yoga, we release trapped energies and emotions and traumas. Those trapped energies, emotions, and traumas can be transmuted or transformed into positive energy that we can then work with to move forward in different ways, through words, through song, through poetry and spoken word, through dance and art and storytelling, through advice and guidance and healing energy, and our intent to bring happiness or satisfaction or comfort to the lives of ourselves and to the lives of those that we care about, even those we don't care about. You know, we can radiate energy. We can do so through sound. That's how amazing our bodies are. Sometimes all you have to do is turn up. You don't even have to open your mouth. just be there. You are emitting all sorts of frequency and vibes. And, you know, sometimes you just have the energy to bring up a room just by being there. Okay. So I think I've kind of gone off on a bit of a tangent, but you know how I roll. You are listening to DJ LP on Passion Radio. And yes, you know, everything, every single thing that we do, every single experience that we have in life does relate to dying, death, and grief in some way, shape, or form. I was going to interview somebody today and they weren't able to make it. And I said, don't worry, I can fill that 2 hours. And she said, yeah, I know you can. Because, you know, death is part of life. And that's what I was told in one of the last conversations that I had with my dad. You know, and yeah, I'm kind of brought back to 1973, which was before I was born. But, you know, the song that was sung by Roberta Flack, Killing Me Softly. In that song, she was speaking about the power of words and how they can be raised. They can be used to raise or lower our personal life experiences. You know, strumming my pain with his fingers, singing my life with his words. Someone was singing a song that had such a profound experience on her that she had to put pen to paper to describe it. And so many people today even resonate with those words, even though we don't know what he sung to inspire those words. And I'll be honest, I don't know whether she wrote that song or not, but you know, the song was so powerful that even when Lauryn Hill came along and made that song her own, she enchanted a whole new audience with those very same words. So when it comes to these songs, you know, we may never meet the writers, but they touch us just as much as the person who's singing the song, and the music that the song floats upon. It penetrates very deep within, and we relate to their pain and their life experiences and their woe and their torment and their love and their happiness and their inner joy. That's music. And that is why life is so beautiful, because we have these ups and we have these downs. We have these experiences that take us to the depths and the edges of despair. And then we can come back and we can sing about them and we can dance to them, you know, and we can inspire people. We can strengthen people, you know. Maybe, I don't know, I can't remember. I know it was very soon, but maybe it was like the next day after my dad had died. I woke up and I just needed Nina. I just needed Nina. So I blasted out feeling good for hours and hours, as loud as I possibly could. Obviously, I wasn't feeling good. I wasn't feeling good at all. I couldn't breathe. I was choked up and I was confused. I was like, what? But I was in a place that I don't think I could have been reached by another person in my life. I knew that I was in a place that I could only communicate with the elements and the animals and the spirits. Only they could reach me. And where I was where Nina had been. You know, she understood and she allowed me to get that portion of grief out at that time. Now, I was raised in a religion, but that was the furthest thing from my mind at that time. I instinctively knew that my life was never going to be the same. And even though I hadn't connected with Nina Simone prior to that day, I knew that she had exactly what I needed in order to feel something. And how beautiful that she was able to provide that way back in 1964, years before I was even born. to be received so gratefully 40 years later when my father died in 2004. But if you look back on a lot of our music, it has been founded in grief. We know death and we know grief, and our true essence displays it. Although in the Western world, we find that we are lost because we've acclimatized to dignities that are not our own, you know, and there's this notion that it's not dignified to express your grief in public for a you know, prolonged amount of time. It's not allowed, it's not welcomed. It makes people feel uncomfortable, you know. But it's necessary. It's necessary for us. In the book of Water and the Spirit by Malidoma Somé, hold on, I've got that book as well. So just for those who are listening via the radio, I'm doing this also by Zoom, and I'm recording it on Zoom, and you can find this recording on my Dipism channel. So that's Dipism, DIPISM UK. It might be .uk, it might be _UK. I'll find out and I'll let you know before the end of the show. You can also find me on Facebook under Elle Pusey. That's ELLE PUSEY. All right. And I think it might be LELLEDJLP Pusey. Okay. Friend request me on there, or but my posts are open anyway, so you can see the videos. Also on my website, www.dipism.com, and no, not all of them, but facfo.org, which is another organization that I run. So going back to this book of Water and the Spirit by Malidoma Patrice Somé, he said that unlike in the West, the people of his tribe believe that it is terrible to suppress one's grief. Okay, if we can safely say, I think that we can safely say that sentiment is echoed through many parts of Africa, yeah, and the Caribbean, and also other countries where people are more in touch with their nature, yeah. So he says that it's terrible to suppress one's grief. I think it's only in the Western countries that it is seen as necessary to sort of subdue it and be repressed. But he says that only by passionate expression can grief be tamed and assimilated into a form of grief that we can live with. I'm going to say that again. Only by passionate expression can grief be tamed and assimilated into a form of grief that one can live with. Okay. Now, I know that I'm playing this on the radio. We are live on Passion Radio. And at some points during the conversation, a big old dirty, what's the word I'm looking for? Dip. What are they called? Gem. Comes in. I apologize. I apologize. But I do think you get the point of what I'm saying. You know, passionate expression is the way through which we can tame our grief, okay, and assimilate it into a form of grief that we can live with. But we are often accused of being too outlandish, too vocal, too passionate, too loud, too emotional. And our displays of emotion, our natural physical displays of emotion, are often seen as, ooh, but why? And, you know, more and more, sadly, we also kind of shirk away from seeing others that we love expressing themselves in that way because we want to appear to be dignified to others. But when we do that, and I explain that in my book, Tapestries of Grief, which I also have here, so I might as well just, you know, show it to the camera as well. Tapestries of Grief. I say that, you know, when we hold our natural inclinations in, we're hurting ourselves. It causes sickness in the body, as I've explained. You know, we then trap trauma within us. We can't release. I was at an academic debate last year, and they were talking about the importance of not showing the grief of mourners at funerals via, you know, webcasts and stuff like that, because grief is a deeply personal thing. This links with the whole stiff upper lip and restriction of emotional expression that is so common. And I know that, you know, we all are gravitating from different places. We all come from different belief structures and backgrounds and ideas and thoughts and narratives, you know, and truths. So what I'm saying isn't, you know, it's my truth. I'm not saying that you should feel any way in particular. But what I am saying is that you should go with the body, go with the expression. Often for us, seeing expression gives us permission to express. When I was working with crews, so often, and when I was working with Mind as well, so often people would call up and I would give them permission to grieve, permission to cry. They would phone up and they would say, I don't know why I'm crying and I shouldn't be crying, and he or she wouldn't want me to be crying. It's the most natural thing in the world. When we were born, when we landed on this earth, the first thing we did was let out a wail. You know, it's the most natural thing. It was the first sound that we made was a cry. And that cry was like, oh, such a relief to our parents, you know. So thinking about how different our grief is with that of the West, thinking about how we need to be expressing grief, how grief is an expression and a release. It's healing for our communities, for our brothers and our sisters. And the same is believed actually as well for the Dagara tribe, because as the late Malidoma goes on to say, everyone within his tribe is obligated by law to shed tears. And that if anybody doesn't cry on such occasion, then they're going to be subjected to gossip rather much like us. You know, we're looking for that break. We're looking for the grief and that sign of endless love. We just do our thing different, you know. But the thing is, the thing that we don't have as such, that the Dagara and other, you know, funeral ceremonies that are closely aligned more with the continent have, is the singers, the drummers, the dancers, the musicians, the chanters. They are all there as standard. And I'm sure that that's the case of other tribes and other nations throughout the world. Yeah, everywhere, barring the West, which is kind of cold and sterile. And as I speak, it's actually quite depressing. You know, liken that to the Ghanaians who have really stepped up to publicly display their rituals and traditions. When someone has made a transition, it's a celebration for them, you know, and they're dancers and drummers and singers and musicians and they're chanters. They have a responsibility to guide the crowd, you know, and their emotions, their laments and their rhythms and their songs are like a call and response that the whole community is part of. This is dialogue. This is communication. This is group healing. You know, men have their death wails and women have theirs. and all move in sync with each other. You know, it's seamless, but it's structured and it's release. And I wish that we could express ourselves in this way when we lose somebody that we love. I don't think we even know how to cry anymore. But it's so vital, it's so important that we find it within us so that our bodies can express and release, so that the pain doesn't get trapped in our bodies and cause imbalance that leads to sickness that we will then trot off to the doctors for to be medicated against. And he will medicate us with chemicals that are not in alignment with who we are, because maybe we just needed to talk. Maybe we just needed the rhythm and the chant that cracks open that part of us, that part of ourselves that holds the grief under control. Maybe it's like an earthenware pot that just needs to be smashed. Malidoma went on to explain that grief unleashed without the help of drummers and musicians and chanters runs the risk of producing another death. And I agree with that wholeheartedly. You know, again, in the West, and I know that I've spoken about it before, it's like they say, if you've experienced your loss within like the first 3 months or 6 months, we can't work with you because it's too early. You need to go through it. But what if you don't know that this is a natural experience, that your grief is natural and that you're going through a natural process? What if you don't know that music is actually your main healer, that chanting will help you through, even if you're just saying, I love you, I love you, I love you, I love you, I miss you, I miss you, I miss you, in line with the beat of the drum, of the music. You know, there's healing in that. It's release, it's allowing the body. And I will probably talk about chanting another day. I will look into it more. And then I will probably, you know, come on here and witter on about the importance of it more. But I just know intuitively that this is what we need to be doing. And when we're chanting, we need to be moving. And we need to be allowing our bodies their natural flow. Just as we breathe, as I said at the beginning, in and out, in tune with the ocean, our bodies need to flow because we believe that we are human dense body. You know, but the belief of what we are is not actually what we are at all. We are so far removed from the truth of who we are. It's a video for another day. It's a show for another day. I know that more and more within our communities, we are working with drummers, but I don't think we value the drum. There is a great significance in our journey with the drum. I recently learned about the spiritual significance of the drum with regard to its creation and levels of communication between worlds. Yes, between worlds. Our music, our instruments, our bodies extend so much further than this life that we believe that we are living, that this world that we believe to be real. You know, we influence so much more than this world. We go beyond it. And yet we cling on to it like it's the only thing. And I was speaking to somebody earlier on today and they were saying, you know, I often chuckle when somebody says, I know that they're not there. So if that's the case, this is me now, where are they? Where are they? If we can still smell their essence and we can still hear their voices and we can still feel them and be comforted by them and we have our memories, then where are they? Where do our memories go? Are our memories in a world of their own that we access, that we heal in? This work is spiritual, you know, it's deep. There is so much more to who we are. And when we know the truth of who we are and what our bodies are and how amazing we are, we won't mourn the loss of our loved ones so deeply, because we will recognize that they haven't died. We haven't lost them. We will come to understand that our bonds can continue and that we can still communicate and work together. We've just forgotten how. There are other worlds that we can access through music. And maybe that's why music has become so corrupted by those that seek to control our native journey, perhaps. So going back to what Missy sung, music makes you lose control. Music makes you lose control. I think music provides the order for our grief and guides it out. Whether we sing, whether we dance, whether we move, play, or simply listen, music is an expression. It regulates our breath, and it soothes our heart, and it motivates us, and it dares us to feel our emotions without shame or embarrassment. Music is as much for the group as it is for the individual. It induces a trance-like state within which anything can happen. And in the wrong hands, anything does happen. So we need to be aware of what we're listening to, what we're taking into our bodies, what we're taking in through our ears. Through music, we can forget our pain. We can connect with our loved ones, dead or alive, and we can experience freedom. We can cross time and countries with ease, and we can enter dimensions and higher states of consciousness. Music brings together people of all ages. It tells a story of love and life and hardship and struggle. It's ageless, and it closes the gap between young and old through conversations that are facilitated by music. We can learn so much about ourselves and our environment and the environments that our loved ones were raised in. You know, there was a time when music was so tame, so harmless, so innocent. And then Elvis came along and he started swinging his pelvis. And then Amy Winehouse came along and she started swearing in music in a way that made it sound so sweet. I think that music is the best gift from the universe. And even though it has been so sorely co-opted by entities that seek to manipulate sound and frequency to control us in ways that we're not always aware of, we can still heal from it. It can still heal our hearts and our minds. We don't have to use machinery or technology to make music, because we have our bodies. We have our bodies, these amazing bodies. So, okay, we're coming to the top of the hour. I feel like I've spoken a lot. So I've said a lot. What I'm going to do now is I am going to play us out in this hour to all right, I'm going to play us out to Feeling Good by Nina Simone. So here we are, second hour. Thank you so much for joining me, for staying with me. I am DJ LP, and as you know, this time, this day, whenever you are watching this, whoever you are, wherever you are, at this time, we are talking about subjects and topics and ideas and thoughts and new ways of perception around the subject and topics of dying, death, and grief. I've been going a little while now. I think I'm doing quite well, but you know, it's a subject that never ever gets exhausted. You know, there is so much more to life than we realize, so much more to our bodies and our existence that we are aware of, you know. And so I think it's really important that we just take time to appreciate and endeavor to go within, to find out more about ourselves and to find out why we are affected in ways that we find ourselves affected when somebody that we love dies. So it's all good. It's all good stuff. And I may be saying it now, but you may be hearing this in years to come. You will find it when it is time, and all being well, you will find what you need and be inspired to go off and look in other places with regards to how you can heal yourself and work your way through grief, which is an energy. Okay, so I've got a message here from Mr. Bojangles. He says, you are speaking of grief in the person, i.e. a one of instance. Okay, so I see that he's still typing, so hopefully he'll be able to clarify. However, when the answer for someone who has experienced grief on multi occasions. Okay, all right. So I think that you're asking then about multiple grief, which would be referred to as cumulative. I don't know if you've heard, but, oftentimes we have heard the expression, well, they always go in threes. I know that during COVID, people experienced more than three. Some people experienced multiple losses that, were sparked through the event of COVID. And for some people, those losses haven't actually stopped. I have a family member who has experienced like 23 odd deaths within the last 6 years, and we seem to be going more and more regularly. Our elders seem to be going. And so it's not unusual for us to be going to for communities to be meeting up regularly to go to funerals, in the sense that it's like funerals have overtaken the wedding space. Now we're talking about death. Now we're meeting up to give our final farewells to those that we have loved, and we are celebrating their lives. So yes, with regards to cumulative grief, there are ways that need to be handled, or ways that grief needs to be handled in that sense. Again, I would assert that it's about music, it's about sound, it's about coming together as communities or even as families, which is often the hardest thing, because when somebody or many people die within a family, then oftentimes so much is lost, to the point where maybe families struggle to stay together, to keep together, to remember that they once loved each other. Cumulative grief affects us in so many ways, to the extent that, who are we grieving? Who do we grieve for first? Is it such a thing? Can we grieve for everybody all at once? Sometimes we lose so many people, but these people have made us the people that we are today. So when we're missing aspects of ourselves, because our bodies, as I said in the first hour, we breathe them, we live them, we learn them, we are them. When our loved ones die, they do take a piece of us with them. So yeah, cumulative death is something that needs to be discussed. It needs to be worked through. Personally, I find that the best way to work through cumulative death is within a group setting, a community setting, because oftentimes when we have lost somebody that we love, we're not the only person. So when we have lost groups of people, it's often groups that need to come together to assimilate that loss together, to grieve together, to learn and grow together, to share experience, feeling, emotion together. In that way, we give each other permission. We give each other that, the okay to express ourselves. Our brothers and our sisters coming together at once. And, in environments where maybe we would have been judging each other normally, death just allows us that time And as I've said on so many occasions, it's not just the loved one that we lose. You know, we may be losing a second income. We may be losing help around the house. We may be losing guidance and support, you know, spiritual, emotional stability, psychological support. When people pass away, you know, they take so much more than their physical essence with them. And so that's often what we find that we are losing. That's what we find that we are grieving. We grieve ultimately for ourselves. We grieve for our loss. We will say to somebody, I am sorry for your loss. I recognize that you have lost, which means that at the moment, although you may look whole, you may not feel whole. Okay, so yeah, Mr. Brojangles has said, my thoughts are thus, we always focus on one person. Yes, and that's true. Oftentimes, when somebody passes away, there is like a main person who has lost, and we tend to forget that there are other people who have lost as well, which is why I say that, yeah, the community is very important. But, you know, I also saw a video recently of a lady who was talking about the loss of her relationship. Her partner was unable to deal with the loss of their baby, but the emphasis, the attention was placed on the mother. He would get a pat on the back and they would keep it moving. Nobody said anything to him. Nobody paid him any attention. Nobody sort of sat down with him and asked him how he was feeling. So he sought solace elsewhere, and their relationship crumbled as a result. But, you know, it's the looking elsewhere. It's who else is grieving. It's the come together. Let's be as one. Recognize that our brothers, our men, our uncles, our cousins, our fathers, they have grief as well, and that they grieve in different ways. You know, we don't all grieve the same. All women don't grieve the same. We are all individuals. There are programs, though, that are placed on our brothers and our husbands and our nephews and sons and cousins that are different to the programs that are placed on the woman, the daughter, the sister, the cousin, you know, the auntie. And so that's where grief becomes divided. It becomes fractured because, you know, it's the traditional view that the man is strong and that he's the survivor and the provider and he's the one that is supposed to be the backbone. You know, and when he is placed in a position of loss, how is he supposed to grieve? Especially if, you know, he's now the person who has to keep everything together. I am reminded as I speak to you, and I don't know how many people are aware of this woman, but there was a woman in America called Jackie O, not Jackie Onassis, but Jackie O. And she was one of the Wild 'N Out girls. So very attractive young lady. And she was married to one of the Wild 'N Out comedians. Can't remember his name off the top of my head. It's gone because I didn't plan to be talking about this. But the two of them had 3 children together. They had a beautiful life. And unfortunately, she passed away. Okay, the conditions under which are not so much necessary to discuss in this show, but she passed away very young, very beautiful, and her death was needless. And so TMZ recently caught up with her partner and, you know, was saying, you know, how are you feeling? How are you coping with this? My man was strong. Even at the funeral, man strong, like, you know, we're going to go through this and, you know, we know God and I know my Bible and I'm strong and we'll deal with this. And we're dealt blows in life and, you know, all of that stuff. But sometimes what I have learned is that this initial reaction to death is autopilot. It's the automatic. It's that thing that kicks in and says, the show must go on. we continue, and I'm back at work. And this is how we continue. This is how we carry on. This is how we do. It's months later that we find that we break down when nobody else is there, when we are left to our own devices, when those people who said that they would always be there kind of go back to their lives, because life does go on. Okay, Mr. Bojangles is saying, please open your phone lines. I don't know how to connect it up to the radio so that people can hear. But if you would like to call in, then I can put you on loudspeaker and then hold the phone up to the microphone so that our people who are listening can also hear the conversation. So for those who wish to do so, my number is 07975861089. And yes, I fully agree. It does open up the conversation. That way I'm not struggling here on my own, you know. It's great to have a conversation like this. And in future, I am looking at ways that I can actually have people on the line so that they can be heard clearly. But at the moment, I'm still trying to work that out. If anybody out there knows how to do it, please help. I'm open to help, and I'm open to advice and guidance every step of the way, because I can't do this alone, as Chronix says. I can't do this alone. It takes a community to make a change and to make a difference. But I was just speaking to somebody earlier on, and I was saying, if we don't build it, how can the community come? So here we are. This is where we find ourselves. Lacking, but making up time, making up for what we haven't had in the past. Maybe we didn't need it in the past. I'll maintain that we did, but somehow or another we got to this point. Here we are, here we find ourselves, and so we continue. Once again, if you'd like to call in, the number is 07975861089, and you are quite welcome to have your say and voice your opinion. So, okay, that leaves us with a little bit of time to discuss what I was going to go on to next. So in the first hour, we were talking about the importance of music and how music soothes our soul, how we as melanated people, and yes, I say we as melanated people without apology. I can only speak as a melanated person. I don't know what it is like to not have melanin. So I don't know how that feels. And I don't know how my melanin works so that I can say, you know, this is what it does for me. But I know that I feel music. I feel vibration in a way that allows me to express myself, feel happy, feel sad, and feel emotions within that range, you know, of happiness and sadness. But there's also another thing that we really do need to bear in mind when we are talking about grief. And that is the breath. The breath is so important. Oftentimes when we find ourselves mourning, grieving the loss of somebody that we have known and loved, whether it be through death or through any other means, oftentimes, I mean, grief is the strongest. Oftentimes we forget to breathe. We literally forget to breathe. Our breathing becomes shallow. And now we don't think about it day to day. We don't think about how we breathe. And they say that how babies breathe is actually how we should continue to breathe. But somehow along the line, we get rushed, we get caught up in life, and we forget how to breathe. Breath is often the thing that kind of goes when we are grieving. It's not that we, you know, stop breathing, we find other ways, but it's a different quality of breath that we are taking in. So let's just think about the breath. Okay, we have the sympathetic and the parasympathetic breath. Now, I've got a book here where I've taken a note of which one is which, and I'm going to refer to it just so that I don't mislead, okay, because I believe I remember. The sympathetic, okay, is the fight or flight, okay, and that's the inhale, okay, and the parasympathetic is the rest, digest, recovery, relax, and that's the out breath. So the sympathetic breath is the motivation. It's that breath that we take before we take that leap, before we take that step, before we go to punch somebody's lights out. Yeah. The sympathetic is the motivation, it's the gusto, it's that thing that pushes us forward. It makes us lunge. Yeah, it's the impetus, it's the movement. That is the sympathetic breath. The parasympathetic breath is the release. It's the rest. It's the recovery, the relax. And I don't know if you remember, but in the first hour, I was saying that our breath really does kind of mirror the waves in the sea. So we breathe in and then we breathe out. We breathe in and then we breathe out. So we kind of go up and down. Our bodies go in and out. We move with the breath. Okay. And in that, there's more. It gets technical still. Did you know that the left nostril is connected to the right brain? And the right nostril is connected to the left brain. So sometimes if we have problems sleeping, then we're probably more in sympathetic mode. Yeah. And we need to shift to the parasympathetic, which is the resting mode. So the system of breathing through the right nostril, yeah, is the sympathetic, and the system of breathing through the left nostril is the parasympathetic. I believe that is correct. And in all things, I will always tell you to do your own research. Don't rely on me. I didn't actually have time to arrange this hour of the dialogue. So it was just the first hour when I was talking about music, when I was talking about the influence that it has on our bodies. So in this hour where I'm talking about the breath, I am referring back to notes that I've made way back when, because I have been collecting information about grief for what they would refer to as donkey's years. I've been talking about grief. I've been studying grief. I've been thinking about it, dreaming it, researching it and stalking it for so long that I have so many notes that, you know, one day become books so that, you know, I can share them in nice and easy, simple ways. Indeed, that's how I was able to write Tapestries of Grief, because it was literally a case of putting all of my notes together, everything that I had learned and taken note of and thought about and realized and understood, to become an overstanding that I could then share with others. And that's how I was able to write both books, My Life's Tapestry and Tapestries of Grief, in 2021, by the work, by the research, by the, you know, knowledge and wisdom, finding myself in places with people and being the only Black person in the room, in spaces where we should be, but we are not. So one thing that I was going to say about the breath, you know, in the first hour, I said that the first thing we do is we cry, we let out a wail when we are born. But it's not, actually. I was wrong. Because in order for us to wail, we have to take in that breath, that sympathetic breath that gives us the life and the sound and the motivation and the gusto to let out that scream that says, oh my word, I'm back here again on earth. What have I done? What have I done? The breath is the first thing. You know, we take in that breath when we land here on earth from that portal that we call the womb. And the last thing that we do before leaving this place that we call earth, before we go through that last portal or that next portal, is breathe. The first thing we do is breathe. The last thing we do is breathe. And in between that life and death cycle, you know, this breathing is something that keeps us alive. It allows us to take the cells, it allows us to take the air, the H2O, into our bodies, to circulate with our blood, in our blood, to move our blood around our bodies, to nourish us. You know, it keeps our organs alive. Air keeps our organs alive. We move because we have taken in air. And when we no longer have those breaths, when we've used all of our breaths, when we no longer have air, everything shuts down. It's the last thing. The sympathetic breath is what keeps us going. Yeah, it's that. And the last breath is the power of sympathetic to release. Okay, all right. So when it comes to grief, then it moves around our bodies, and breath allows it to move around our bodies. We can get sick with grief because we forget how to breathe. But, you know, our emotional recovery is really dependent on that breath. We breathe into the stomach and we move that air throughout our bodies. Our loved ones want us to be healthy. They want us to be happy. They want us to be well. And in that way, we keep our connection with them. When we breathe, we clear the debris that blocks us up. When we breathe, we clear away that murky shite that keeps us in one place, that keeps us stagnant, that keeps us dark, that keeps us, you know, from moving forward. That grief is a dangerous place to be trapped in. Grief has no real, how can I put it? It's something that can be viewed in so many ways, but because we fail to recognize what grief is, we tend to go to the negative aspects of it. Sometimes we might see somebody who's lost somebody that they cared for dearly, loved intensely, and they're laughing and they appear to be happy. They too are grieving. Just because they can smile, just because they can show happiness, it doesn't mean that they're not grieving. It means that that time when you've seen them, they are in an upper range of happiness, they're in an upper range of grief. There is also a lower range of grief, and that is what we tend to connect with more. You know, when we talk about rituals and traditions, you know, like those that I mentioned in the first hour, that Malidoma Patrice Sommeil spoke about, those rituals, those ceremonies, the funeral, the way how it's done on the continent and in other countries is done in a way so that we can release from our bodies immediately the grief that we feel through the music, through the sound, through the movement, yeah, through the chanting, through breathing, through the body, so that grief can be handled in a more controllable way. Once we have wailed, we feel so much better. Once we have regained our breath, we can move freely freely through it. And as I said in the first hour, and I will say it again, when we know who we are and how amazing and great and awesome and wonderful and powerful we are, then we will understand what death is. And once we understand what death is, we will not mourn as deeply as we do, because we will understand that we still have access to our loved ones. And we do so through breath, through going within, through silence, through meditation, through music, through sound. It's all interlinked. Our bodies are instruments, vital for our continuation, vital. So, okay, I've got here a question again from Mr. Bojangles. He says, please let me ask, do you think that the Black culture experience grief differently? Yes, I do. UK, USA, African and Caribbean. Okay, and then the second thing he has said is that breathing is also death. In every way you are speaking, it brings death. Okay, okay. I take that statement and I concur. Breathing is also death. In every way you are speaking, it brings death. Okay. With regards to your question, please let me ask, do you think that the Black culture experience grief differently? Yes, but I'm not going to answer it in the sense of the Black culture. I would say that people of the diaspora experience grief differently to those who remained on the continent. And I would say that those of the American diaspora will experience it differently, and those in the Caribbean experience it differently, and that those who are Black British, I don't know, there's so many different ways of looking at us, different tribes, different cultures, different backgrounds, different belief systems, different learnings. We're all coming from different places. Some of us have been raised with religion. Some of us have been raised with spirituality. Some raised with, different ideas of music, different ideas of what's right and what's acceptable behavior. So I would say that we all experience grief differently. All of us. Grief is a very individual, I don't know how you're feeling. I cannot say, yeah, I know how you feel. I know how you feel. I can empathize with you. I can sympathize with you. But, there's a difference between sympathy and empathy. There's two different things. One of them, you are looking at the person, you're looking kind of down at the person. The other one, when you empathize with somebody, you're saying, okay, I recognize that I don't know how you're feeling, but I'm here with you. I'm by your side, and I've had experiences, and I have felt through those experiences, and perhaps I feel with you at this moment, but I feel how I feel, and you feel how you feel. So I don't know whether that answers your question, Mr. Bojangles, although you've just said yes. I don't know what you're saying yes to, what part of what I've said you're in agreement with. But we do all grieve differently. You can have a family of 8, a mum and dad and 6 children or whatever, and each relationship with each person within that family is completely different. I didn't get on with my mum, but my other 2 sisters loved her dearly, and then I have another sister who had a different mum. Yeah, I don't feel anything for that woman, but my little sister obviously loves her dearly. It's still family, so everybody has a different relationship with everybody. We have friends, we have partners that we love more than our blood relatives. Grief cannot be quantified. just as much as love cannot be quantified. And sometimes we can lose a friend that we didn't actually think that we thought much of. But once they've gone, it's like, damn, I did actually love you. You were actually a very important part of my life, because we rub up together. Our lives are not just our own, they belong to everybody that we interact with, which is why sometimes I just want to stay in my bed and curl up and be on my own. Because, you know, when we're interacting with people, we're also taking on their energy. We're taking on their experiences. We're taking on their life and their opinions and their attitudes. Sometimes, and I think I said this in the first hour, I was speaking with Edison this weekend, and he was saying, yeah, we can be allergic to people. There are some people that we just cannot take, and it's okay. It's okay. Our bodies have aversions to people. Our bodies feel people. We can walk into a room and we can feel the atmosphere and just know, oh, it's a bit cold in here, isn't it? People aren't getting on. Sometimes you might just have to take one person out of the room and everybody can breathe again, you know, and feel all right. Sometimes it's that person that needs our help and support. Sometimes they don't know how to express themselves and we don't know how to perceive them. And what we need to recognize as well is that there are so many more people within this body that we're sitting in. You know, you will perceive Laura differently to others that are closer to me. Some of you may know me as DJ LP. Others of you may know me as Dipsy Aura. Some people do just call me Dip. Others on Facebook call me L-E-L-L-E, you know? And the truth of the matter is that I'm none of those. When I interact with you, you see and get from me what you need. What you see and what you get is not necessarily who I am. I may be providing all of this stuff to you, but it's not who I am. And when we go even deeper, if you want to go there, I don't even know who I am. I know what I like, I know what I dislike, but do I know who I am? No. When I landed on this earth, I was given a name. And I was given the name Laura. They were going to call me Charmaine, but they didn't know how to spell Charmaine, so they called me Laura. Okay. After Laura Ingalls from Little House on the Prairie. If I'd been called Charmaine, my life would have been completely different. But I'm living Laura as best as I can, and I do her perfectly. Other people live Laura, and they do her perfectly. But I'm living this Laura, yeah? So, yeah, that's why. And I've really gone off on a tangent, but that's why you can't look at somebody else and envy who they are or what they have, you know, because they're living their lives. And that's where my idea of perfection comes from. When I turn and I say to you, you are perfect, because I can't live your life. Nobody else can live your life. You came to earth to live your life. Yeah, I'm passionate. What can I say? Mr. Bojangles has sent a message saying, dear God, and I can see he's probably got his head in his hands and he's saying, oh my gosh, she's gone off on one. Yeah, this is what happens when you don't plan, but you've got to be prepared. And when it comes to dying, death and grief, I can talk for hours, because this is what I know. This is what I have researched. This is what I instinctively have within me. And, you know, of the many personalities that I have, I just invite you to take the one that suits you, take the one that helps you, take the one that inspires you, and keep it moving so that you can live your life and you can have your experiences and you can go about your business and touch others, because that's what life is about. That's what life is. And was that what I planned to speak about in the second hour? Hell no! Excuse my French. I was going to talk about the importance of breath, how natural it is, how normal it is, and how we need to learn how to breathe properly. There are so many different types of breath, you know, fast breathing and slow breathing and panting and pacing. And each stage or each type of breath that we employ can take us to different states of awareness. It can open up different avenues and aspects of our bodies that have become clogged up to the point where we can no longer see or speak or feel and interact with those around us, let alone those that we have lost to death. So, yeah, it's deeper than I expected to go. But, you know, this is radio and I have to talk. You're not allowed to stop talking. There's not supposed to be silences. But yeah, I resonate with this subject, and I recognize that it's not for everybody. But you know what? Death will come to us all. And so we need to be talking about it. We need to be talking about it in advance. We need to be planning for it in the same way that we plan to go to a dance, in the same way that we plan to go to the carnival, in the same way that we plan to go to a wedding, or we plan to have a baby, or, you know, we plan to get married one day. We will die. And we need to plan and be prepared for it so that our loved ones can be prepared for it, so that when we do lay our bodies aside, our loved ones can keep breathing. Our loved ones can keep moving. Our loved ones can express themselves. Death is a very important thing that we need to face head on, that we need to appreciate, that we need to value, that we need to see the beauty of. Because when you overstand death, you will see the beauty of it. You will see the necessity of it. And you will see how important it is. Its life, its existence, its continuation, its movement. And yes, as Mr. Bojangles has says, death is the great equalizer. No one shall escape this. So why don't we talk about it? And it's for that reason that I really do have to big up the Passion Radio management for allowing me this time to speak about it. You know, this is a reggae radio station, but so much of our music originates from death, originates from sorrow and trauma and misery and grief. It's necessary. It's us, you know, it is what has made us. Now, I don't know if 1,000 years ago, death was as potent, let's say. I don't know. I'd like to think that, you know, in times of old, ancient times, the real times, that it was celebrated because it was overstood to be an elevation, to be an upgrade. You know, we go to the realm of the ancestors, and we come from the realm of the ancestors into life, and we go back to the realm of the ancestors, and then we are reborn and we come back to life. Some people would say that this is actually death, and that the real life is that which we go back into. Who knows? I don't know that yet, but I am investigating death. I am actively researching it. I am not filled with fear. I am filled with curiosity. It's not a morbid obsession. It's life. And it's beautiful. So on that note, I think what I'm going to do now is wrap up for today. I'm going to say thank you so much for joining me. I am DJ LP. I am Laura D. Pusey. I am whoever you want me to be. And you are quite welcome to watch this video back and listen in 10 years' time. And I hope that by that time I will be a completely different Laura, with so much more information, so much more knowledge and wisdom to share with you. I hope that by that time I will be able to guide you through the death sequence. guide you out of this experience and into the next. That is the intention for the future. And of course, there is so much more, so much more. Mr. Bojangles has said, this is a great program. Thank you so much. You put me under pressure today. And he has said, fix your mic and then I will call in. Well, I did say that you could call in and I would put you on loudspeaker so that our listeners could hear, but okay. I will extend the invitation to anybody, including yourself, Mr. Bojangles. If you would like to have a conversation, then let's do it via Zoom. We can have the conversation. I can record it and it will go out through the airwaves, as does when I am speaking with members of the community who are working within the fields of dying, death, and grief. Indeed, this platform is open to anybody. If you would like to have a conversation with me, let's do this. Let's do this. We are all part of the community. Okay, it's all good. All right. So if you want to contact me, you can do so on 07975 861089. Bear in mind that in 10 years' time, in 1 year's time, in 5 years' time, that might not be my telephone number, but today it is. Okay, today it is. Mr. Bojangles has said, cool, we will do that. So, okay, fine, that's all good. You can also find me on www.dipism.com. That's DIPISM.com. You can find me on FACFO. That's www.facfo.org. That's facfo.org. Okay. And FACFO is the Federation of African and Caribbean Funeral Operatives. Okay. So let's listen to George Benson, the greatest love of all. And the reason why I have said that is because he's talking about the children. And even though children scare the living daylights out of me, I do believe that they are the future, which is why we need to be talking to them. We need to be talking to them and we need to be listening to what they have to say, because they are the ancestors returned. Aha.